7 after 2. We'll wait till 10 after, then we'll begin and give Mr. Koretz a couple more minutes. This will be the Personnel Committee for Wednesday, March 2nd. Councilmember Zine, Councilmember Koretz, and Councilmember Parks is not here. He's not expected to show? No. Okay. We have 3 items on the agenda. Given that agenda, we can start with item number 3. Since that's probably the easiest one, work our way back to the front.
For item 3, what's before you is your motion and Mr. Garcetti's relative to the Pew Research Center report on council member salaries and instruction for the chief legislative analyst, along with the controller's office and the personnel department to report on a comparison of city general managers and assistant general manager salaries to other major municipalities in the nation and other related matters.
I think that the motion was not the council member salaries, but the general managers and the assistant general manager salaries.
Yes, Maureen Aspen from the CEO's office. What your motion asked us to do is look at general manager and assistant general manager salaries in the city and kind of compare it to other municipalities. And we've started that research, and you know, it's a little bit difficult because of the sizes of the jurisdictions, the titles are all different, but we have done some preliminary work on that. And generally for the city, our general managers range from about $154,000 a year to about $326,000. And for example, looking at the county of Los Angeles, their general managers go from about $113,000 to $338,000. So we are very comparable, and some of the other jurisdictions that we've looked at are also very comparable. For example, the city attorney in San Diego makes $291. The San Jose director of aviation makes $221. They're all right in the high end is about $250,000 to $300,000. We'd like to take a little bit more time and flesh out all of the details for you, and come back with some further information. But just preliminarily looking at it, it doesn't look like we're severely out of whack.
Okay, well, did we compare it to City of Bell?
No, we're leaving them out of the study.
That would make us look like paupers, probably, when you look at the numbers that they have there. One thing we need to include is the pension, and if there's if the employees put into the pension fund, or if it's all paid for by the municipality, because some
Okay.
jurisdictions, they pay the full pension costs.
Yes.
And then also on health, so we want to make a comparative analysis. Do they subsidize all the health care, or is there a
Okay.
share paid?
So in
for?
addition to salaries, you also want
Yeah, so
pension
then we have
and
a full-
health?
A full package, because if we,
Okay.
we looked, the Pew report came up with the numbers, and it shows LA down to San Antonio, of the large municipalities, we're at the top with 178.79 as far as council salaries. But then you look at the ratio of population, it is $6.62 per resident when you calculate the cost. So we're one of the lowest costs per resident, but of the 6 largest cities, we spend 0.58% on the city council. When it comes to the general managers, we don't have that information, but their report showed clearly, while we're high as far as the compensation in comparison, so that's why I want to add the health and the pension, so we can look at a general manager in Los Angeles, what opportunities we have for their benefits versus what these other jurisdictions have.
Okay. Now, do you want us to look at cities throughout the nation that are comparable in size, or are you more interested
Probably
in
size.
California?
Well, you know what, I think in California, because if you look at the East Coast, some of the places, the cost of living is much less. For example, in Houston, for council salaries, it's a full-time council in Houston, they make $55,770.
Right.
Now, $55,000 in Los Angeles would not be a high salary. In Houston, I guess it must be, because that's what they're paying them. Baltimore, $63,178. Now, this surprised me, Detroit, $73,595.
Right.
And Detroit's an impoverished area. So, but
I mean,
if we,
would-
I want to compare apples to apples, oranges to
I
oranges.
mean, would you like us to use the same cities that were used in the Pew report?
Well, if we're looking at the East Coast, I wouldn't want to compare us to Detroit or Houston,
Okay.
because I think that it's going to be skewed. The real estate property there is probably a lot less, gasoline prices are a lot less. We need to be in a comparative analysis.
Okay.
So I think if we stick to the West Coast, it'll probably be more accurate information.
Okay. Yeah, I
You-
think
you-
that would be a more comparable comparison, yeah.
To buy a house out here is obviously more expensive than purchasing a house in Texas or purchasing a house in Detroit.
Right.
You know, it's much less expensive there than it is here, which
Okay.
obviously costs the housing. So, Mr. Koretz, anything on number 3?
Nothing else to add, except I was wondering if we have information yet on whether our own general managers and assistant general managers have taken voluntary furloughs and pay cuts themselves.
Many of them have, yes. I don't have,
That I thought.
yeah,
What's in this motion?
yes. So
I was just wondering if we had that information yet.
we
or-
don't have the information, I mean, we do have the information available, but I don't have it for you today. But we can have that, yes.
Because I was told by a general manager that not all general managers have taken the pay cut, and that mayor obviously has discretion since they're all appointed answerable to the mayor. But many of us have taken pay cuts, including the mayor.
Yes.
And if we're doing furloughs on employees, you'd think that the general managers of those departments would be taking pay cuts, just as a matter of moral support.
Yes, many of them are. For example, Chief Beck takes,
Right.
a pay cut every pay period. And there are other general managers that do it as well. But I can't say that it's 100% across the board.
Okay, because the ones that aren't, we're going to target that maybe the embarrassment. Since their employees are on furloughs, they should share in that pain also.
Okay.
Okay, Paul?
Nothing else.
So we'll move number 3.
Do
waiting
you
for
wish
the
to
report.
continue it in committee to
Yes.
allow the CEO report?
Exactly.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to number 1, and we have a public comment on number 1. Go ahead.
On item 1, subsequent to agenda release, the CEO has submitted a report, which I have given you copies of, and I put it for the public as well. The CEO is here to report on the recommendations, and as you said, there's a public speaker on this item as well.
Charles Leon, we'll hear from Mr. Leon on this matter.
Thank you so much for your time this afternoon, Honorable Committee, Mr. Zine, Mr. Koretz. We do appreciate the time that you're taking to hear the discussion about the Jose Weezer motion, which was seconded by Eric Garcetti, to exempt certain classifications from street services. What's before you today is a report that the CAO has just released responding to that motion. First off, we want to say that we appreciate the work that the CAO's office is doing with relation to street services. The report that's before you today does come with you with an endorsement and a recommendation to exempt certain classifications. While we're appreciative and while we're thankful of the hard work that the CAO's office has put into this, the one thing that I do want to stress to your committee today is that we still do not believe that this report goes far enough. The start of the report, it gives you background on how and what the methodology was for certain classifications in the city to be exempt from furlough. They mentioned to you a 90% reimbursable rate is what they look at and determine who's going to be exempt and who's going to not be exempt from this bureau. This is a bureau that has got 10 special funds. This is a bureau that has unused gas tax dollars. They don't include the fact that there are aspects of the Bureau of Street Services that generate revenue. As one of the recommendations that is not listed before you with this report is that of the motor sweeper operators in street maintenance. The sweeper operators in street maintenance, they clean your posted routes that are in your council districts, and those posted routes generate anywhere from 10 to 12 parking citations any given route when cars are left. Each ticket has a cost of about $60. Well, all of those parking tickets need to be canceled because those posted routes are they're not being swept. We're losing up to $500,000 in general fund money each month. And the CO still has not been able to come up with the information that we've shared before with relation to that. We very much appreciate what is being discussed before you today, but to exempt only a portion of street services is going to be a managerial nightmare. You're going to have some work, for example, I have folks that did pothole work, but because we're so short on motor sweeper operators, they left the pothole trucks to jump on the sweeper operators because those streets needed to get swept. Well, now, if the pothole trucks are going to be exempt from furloughs, then you can imagine that folks are going to jump off the sweeper trucks and they're going to want to go back to those pothole trucks. Folks, we need to exempt all of street services. That was the recommendation and the endorsement from the Board of Public Works. Street Services has money that your council and your body has already allocated to this bureau. The unused gas tax dollars is money that they have because they have had furloughs, and that's money that they've been able to hold on to, that they want to give back to the city to say, please exempt every single classification, every single aspect of street services. They have the capability and they have the money. It is going to be a managerial nightmare if you just exempt a certain portion. We are asking that all of the Bureau of Street Services be exempt. We are asking that you look at the 90% reimbursable rate and take into consideration that there are classifications which are not included in the CO's report for recommendation of exempting from furlough that generate revenue. Those are the motor sweeper operators, because when a street is not swept, they have to cancel all those citations. Look at the Special Projects Division, another aspect of street services which is not a part of the recommendation from the CIO. Millions and millions and millions of dollars in money that's off the general fund. A bunch of special funds and a bunch of federal money that's already been allocated to this bureau. We understand that there are a number of challenges that face this city today. We understand that there is a citywide discussion that's taking place with the coalition. We understand that there are a lot of things that we face in the city. But today, for the streets that your constituents use every single day, for those streets to be filled, for resurfacing to complete its resurfacing miles, please take into consideration and support the recommendations of the Bureau. And also one thing I want to add is this. On February the 28th, Bill Robertson, the General Manager of Street Services, retired after a lengthy and historic tenure in the city. He was a pretty good general manager. He made do with less. The last 3 years, this Bureau sustained 55% of cuts. They were able to find that money elsewhere. They were able to get creative. That was because of the leadership and the executive team that the Bureau had to make do with less. They have come through for the city, the Bureau has, more so than most other departments. They've come through for general services when general services had furloughs and they needed extra funds. And back in December, they gave $5 million, more than $5 million, to General Services to help get their folks off of furloughs so that the sweeper trucks, the pothole trucks, the resurfacing trucks could be returned in more timely fashion. Time and time again, Street Services has acted selflessly. We're asking now that Street Services has been able to use their very own money for other parts of the city, other departments. Let Street Services use their very own money to unfurlough and exempt from furloughs employees in Street Services. Let them use their money for themselves, money that you've already allocated to them, their gas tax funds and everything else. One thing I do want to add before I leave today is the timeliness of all of this. As each day goes past, these sweeper routes are being missed, the citations aren't being written, you're losing money to the general fund. And as the CAO speaks before you today, they're going to say that certain classifications don't meet a 90% reimbursable rate. Ask the CAO what is the impact to the general fund when certain classifications meet the 90% reimbursable rate and certain classifications do not. Also, we have before us a new general manager. He's an acting general manager, Nazario. Take into consideration the managerial nightmare if he only knows that a certain portion of his bureau is going to be exempt. You're going to have folks that are going to want to jump off the pothole trucks jump off the sweepers and back onto the pothole trucks. Street Services has the money.
Okay, you've already said it. Do you have anything else to add?
Nope.
You repeated it a
We
number of
appreciate
times.
it,
We
yeah.
got it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Eric Sangiorno.
Earl.
Bongiorno, I like that.
St. George is a Jewish name they converted. Anyway, Eric Sanjurjo, Councilmember Weezar's office. We're happy to see the CAO come close to agreeing with the premise of the motion that we need to start getting some of these folks back to work, especially when there are funds available. We also saw Operation Pothole was very successful. It was the first time Street Services had used special funds to pay for overtime in quite a while. So we'd like to see that continue to get all our folks off of furlough if we can, or at a minimum, at least get rid of some of the classifications that the report points out are closest to being 100% or at least 90% special funded. And I also did like that the report did point out that Bureau of Engineering and some of the other affiliated departments have positions that are funded by the same funding sources, and it's only fair if we're going to exempt people at Street Services to also exempt people, for example, from I think it's Propo or some of the sanitation fees, wastewater. There's some BOE employees who are tied to that, so we should be consistent across bureaus. And then just one general comment, that we thought this was a good, aside from Public Works, I mean, this is a good example of what's happening in the city right now with services and furloughs, and how it isn't clear to the departments or to council staff exactly what the rules are. And that was one of the things we wanted to accomplish from this discussion, to understand exactly what it takes to get workers off of furloughs so that managers can manage, because we keep hearing from a lot of people that they feel like the rules are kind of changing, ever changing, and there's nothing they can do to keep up with demand for services. And this, of course, is one of the most important city services that we provide. And as we've seen the rains this year, the city's in pretty bad shape. So we're hoping that we can do something on this, and we ask for your help.
Thank you. All right, let's hear from the folks that are here to sell the case.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Councilmember Koretz, John Chavez with the CAO. First of all, my apologies for the lateness of this report. We were working rather late trying to come up with final recommendations, so I apologize for that, but I did reach out to your deputies to try to brief them before this meeting.
Yes, thank you.
There's the motion that's out there requested that we look at Street Services, see if we can exempt them from furloughs. I think there was a lot of interest in that because of the kind of core services that they provide. And as mentioned earlier, there's a lot of special funds in that department. It's mostly special funded. As you probably know, the current policy is on special funds is that the special funds have to cover 90% of their direct and indirect cost. No Street Services employee met that standard, but I'd like to go, and if you give me a minute or two, to discuss that rationale so you can understand that fully, because I think there's still a lot of questions about why, with all this special fund, can't we exempt some of these employees. First of all, Street Services doesn't allocate people to just one special fund. For instance, they don't just have people that are 100% ARA special funded. They don't do that. It limits them. That person would just be going to the 8 ARA-related projects throughout the city, and it really hampers their efficiency. Rather, what Street Services does is that they would allocate multiple special funding sources to that employee. So that person in the morning could be doing lot cleaning with general fund. Later on in the afternoon, if there's an urgency, that person could be doing gas tax repaving nearby. So that really helps them in deploying their staff efficiently. The other key factor to consider is that just because it's a special fund, it doesn't mean that it recovers 90% or more of its direct and indirect cost. It means that some special funds do, like street damage. However, gas tax does not. The stormwater pollution abatement does not. So we end up with the situation where you have street services employees that have multiple special funding sources, some of them that cover 90%, some of them that don't meet the 90%. So at the end of that analysis, no street services employee is receiving funding that covers 90% of the direct and indirect cost. So all street services employees at this time are on furlough. But I wanted to pause here and give the committee a chance to ask questions about that rationale.
What percent, you say it's not 90, what percent is it covered?
It depends. I mean, gas tax covers maybe at this time 50% of its direct and indirect cost. As I mentioned before, street damage covers all of it. So each fund is different, and that therein lies the problem, because you're allocating all these special funds to an employee, and in the end, if you add all those special funds together, they just don't meet the 90% test. And so that's why we have everybody on furlough right now.
Sir?
I have a question.
Okay.
First. What I'm not clear on is where the efficiency is in this approach. Because by furloughing so many folks that are largely special funded, I don't know how this 90% actually winds up leading to an efficient use of city money and provision of services, especially when we see areas where we know we're losing money, like cutting back on street sweeping and then losing more money than we've saved writing tickets. So even if it was general funded street sweeping that we halted, we'd be losing money. Certainly if there's a special funding factor, it's even more clear that it's inefficient. Mm-hmm. Why have we set this 90% goal, and why don't we look at adding more flexibility to that?
The 90% threshold.
I'm David Hirano from the Office of CAO. As I understand it, the 90% threshold was set to allow for some flexibility and not require 100% cost recovery. So to the extent that you want to allow for some additional flexibility, that would be a policy choice that you could make. However, the 10% flexibility is kind of already built into the system. And I obviously don't have to remind you, we do have a serious budget problem, so that our policy would be to want to limit some of that flexibility, but still recognize that flexibility is probably needed. So,
Is that department in budget, out of budget, over budget?
The department, they're currently in budget.
They're in budget?
Yes, yes. In fact, they have savings in gas tax. The other thing too.
How much are they? What's their surplus?
In gas tax?
All the. What?
Overall, they're going to experience probably a $16 million
Surplus?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say that I know that I'm going to jump the gun a little bit here and say that in our recommendations, we are asking that certain employees within street services, DOT, BOE, and GSD, that we do exempt them from furloughs. And so we're actually our recommendation actually is going counter to that 90% standard. So we recognize that there's an important element here of getting services done, important services like pothole. So we are our office is deviating from that standard in making these recommendations. So we're doing this balancing act.
Okay. So you're talking 16 million surplus?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, Councilmember Zine, Councilmember Koretz, Nazario Salceda, Interim Director of the Bureau of Street Services. First and foremost, I want to recognize the great job that the CAO did putting together this report. We didn't have a lot of time to read it, though, but they put together a great report. I also want to commend John for having such great communication skills and interacting with our staff day in and day out. I can almost say that I like the CAO now, but I can't. But
That's on record.
John is changing my perception of the CAO.
You haven't seen his recommendations yet.
Yeah, well, I've seen them, and relative to the report, I would like to clarify just one thing. The report is real nice, but I would like to clarify that we did not propose to furlough our 1,200 employees. No, we were simply complying with the instructions that we received during the budget deliberations. We simply, at that time, did not meet the definition of special funded programs. You know, the 90% you're talking about that we're discussing right here, at that time, we did not meet the definition. Therefore, we had to, and I repeat, we had to put our employees on mandatory furloughs. So I just wanted to clarify that. As you well know, council members, the Bureau of Street Services provides a plethora of services, a lot of services, services that impact the quality of life, services that increase public safety. It is a well-known fact that the demand and the type of services vary from council district to council district. The priorities in Wilmington are different than the priorities in the West Valley. The priorities in Pacoima are different than the priorities in the Palisades. Therefore, and relative to the council motion introduced by Councilmember Windsor, we felt compelled to bring to you a plethora or a big menu of options. I mean, we just didn't want to reduce these options to resurfacing and pothole repairs, because only you and no one better than you knows what kind of services you require from the Bureau of Street Services. As a result, we decided to propose the usage of $2.5 million of our gas tax account that is not going to be utilized is from our materials account to offset the furlough obligation that we have. So we made that money available as part of our proposal, and we're still making it available. I see that the recommendation is not part of the recommendation made by the CAO today, and we just want to bring it to your attention again. We have the funds to offset the furlough obligation and make our services available to you, all our services, not just 2 or 3. Just so you get an idea, for example, every day that we work on a furlough day, we could complete an extra mile of resurfacing. We could complete 3 miles of slurry sealing. We could fix 900 potholes. We could remove thousands of illegal signs. We could remove hundreds of locations where we have, or at least remove hundreds of cubic yards of illegally dumped material. So the options are there for you, and we present those to you, council members.
Okay, the Wilshire Boulevard needs paving bad.
Yes.
Have you been down that street?
Yes, several times.
And the mayor lives off of Wilshire Boulevard. He mentioned how bad it is. I think he's going to turn his city vehicle into a tank so he doesn't hit his head on the roof of the vehicle. It's unbelievable how we have a street which is referred to as the Miracle Mile in such deplorable condition. That's only one of the many. I know the valley has issues too, but we talk about street surfacing. We're talking about a reconstruction on that particular roadway. I only bring that up because the mayor mentioned it recently, and people talking about potholes and streets that need surfacing. The special funds, if we don't use them, is there a time frame? If we don't use them, we lose them?
In some instances, we do lose them. For instance, we have to spend Proposition 1B funds within a certain period of time. We do have to spend ARA within a certain period of time.
How close are we within those time frames?
We're okay. I mean, Street Services has done a really nice job of managing the ARA portion of it. Prop 1B, I think we're on track for that spending
There's
as
no
well.
jeopardy now of losing any money.
Not this time, no.
Okay, and what about the attrition? What's the attrition at the Bureau?
Well, we lost approximately 121 employees to IRIP. And believe it or not, we're still losing employees almost every week. Not only through to retirement, but to other departments such as the Department of Water and Power or departments that have special funded programs. So we're losing a lot of staff.
Just to put it in context, Mr. Chair, they have about 1,200 employees, both regular and resolution authority. They have about 200 vacancies right now,
So there's $16 million surplus in their budget.
approximately, yeah.
They're not running a deficit.
That's right.
They've got money available, 86% funded or whatever, 90, close to 90%, to do these projects. And because of the furlough, we're saving money, but at the same time, we're letting money sit and collect when we could put it to good use for legitimate core services. And we talk about core services.
Right.
You deal with core services. What about the, this issue on the parking violations? Where does it say that if the sign says, you know, you shouldn't park there because of street cleaning, and whatever happens, it's not cleaned, where does it say that that citation is no longer valid when they park in violation of the sign?
That's been decided, that's a policy decision. Right now, and
That's a policy decision.
yes, DOT, and I shouldn't talk on behalf of DOT, but DOT, basically, there's a lot of coordination between us and DOT. When we know that we are not going to be able to sweep a postal route, we call DOT and we relax.
So you tell them?
Yes, and
I thought they go out and cite with good
No.
intention, and then they don't understand what
No.
you folks are doing.
no, there's,
The courtesy that.
yes, that is correct.
But if the sign's there and people don't comply, because it could be an LAPD officer driving down the street, doesn't know what the street sweeping is going to be, and they cite, because I know it's very expensive. Handicap now is $1,000, and those fines are obviously going up. So you deal with that, and how often is a street not swept because of the furlough situation?
Well, right now, we were able to, in order to ensure the proposed or the expected revenue, typically as a result of citations related to no parking violations, the city generates between $30 and $40 million a year. So knowing that that's a big priority of our street cleaning program, we decided to take people or motor sweeper operators that perform open routes, sweeping on open routes, the ones that don't have the posting, the restrictions, and we brought those individuals to run the sweepers on sections where we have the posting. So right now, the only program that is suffering is the open routes. The postal routes are not suffering right now.
So all the poster routes are now being swept, and the citations are then all valid? in
Yes.
those areas? Okay. Do you sweep on rainy days?
Typically, no, we don't, unless there's an emergency. No, we don't.
So then a citation would not be given?
No, we'll not be giving on a rainy
Guilty
day.
also?
Yes.
Okay. And the, now we have unions that represent the bargaining units, and no one wants to be furloughed. Now, if we do an exemption on this, it's for the whole Bureau or certain segments of the Bureau?
In our recommendation, we would be exempting primarily the resurfacing program, which is they resurface and repair the roads, and also the pothole side, which is the maintaining streets program. So they're the ones that would be exempted. Now, I should say that I think there was a claim that it's an administrative nightmare. In our office, we have people that are furloughed and people that are not furloughed. It's a reality that exists in many departments. So it is kind of a headache, but
Well, we have timesheets, and that oftentimes
that's
shows
correct.
that's how you get paid. So if I'm a street sweeping guy, and Paul is
a tree trimmer, for instance.
tree trimmer.
Right.
Okay. Are people cross-trained within the Bureau? Could the tree trimming individual jump in the street sweeper and I could go out and trim the tree? I mean, do we have cross-train, or is it, that's my job and?
Well, we're talking about two different things. Tree trimmers, I mean, a normal person cannot become a tree trimmer without the proper training.
Say a pothole filler.
But here, you brought up an excellent point, council member.
I know.
Right now, we have our truck operators that should be running a pothole truck. They're running the sweeper because the sweepers bring their revenue.
So they're cross-trained, though?
Yes,
That's what I'm saying.
yes.
How many folks in the Bureau are cross-trained to do?
Right now, we
Well, I'm a cop
Right.
working on a motorcycle. An officer in a car is not qualified to work on a motorcycle unless he's been trained. A firefighter is driving the engine, he's the engineer, He's not the one who's out there with the hose or jumping through the roof. So I'm trying to figure out how many are cross-trained versus they have a special category and they work within that boundary of the category.
All those with the same MOU within the same bargaining unit, typically, there's a chain that relates one position to the next one. Typically, within the Bureau, you become, your entry-level position is maintenance laborer, then MNC, street maintenance worker 1, street maintenance worker 2, then you become a truck operator, heavy-duty truck operator, motor sweeper operator, and then equipment operator. So we're training everybody at the different levels, at least 2 levels above their current classification. Right now, we have 30 truck operators running sweepers in order to maintain the postal routes, the way we have them right now, to a 97% efficiency.
They're on furloughs, though?
They're on furloughs, yes.
They're making up for somebody who's on a furlough. They're working for a person who's on furlough. So when someone on a furlough, you're bringing somebody else in to do that street.
No, what happens is we have to bring people from different divisions, not only from within the division, from different divisions, special projects, urban forestry. We train our employees to run a sweeper. We provide them the classes to get the certificates.
No, but my point is, when you're on furlough, not everybody's on furlough at the same time.
No.
They rotate.
No,
So if he's
exactly.
on a furlough on Monday, I'm on a
Exactly.
furlough on Tuesday.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if I'm on a furlough on Tuesday and he's on a furlough on Monday, I'm working Monday, I could jump in and take.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
So what kind of discord do we cause within the Bureau if we say that we let this happen and we don't have everybody cross-trained? And my concern is what happens with the ones that aren't cross-trained, that are on furloughs, versus those that can do the pothole or the street sweeper or whatever. See, my focus, I don't know how many folks you got out there that are actually cross-trained to do the other responsibility. And then you start having morale problems because, hey, you're off of furlough, you're making this full money now, and I'm still on furlough, and we're working the same place. So now we create more dissension. If we lift the whole thing, then how does it work where furloughs are removed? Will that work? Or was the temporary work? I mean, what I'm looking at is something to carry you through to the end of the fiscal year. Because obviously, July 1st, we have a new budget, we have to issue that at the time. But I'm trying to figure out how we can permit this, because we're going to come up with some plan to help you with this. And I'm trying to figure out not to create turmoil and the morale problems, how we bring those folks together. That's why my concern about cross-training.
Let me give you a quick scenario, council member.
Okay.
Let's say that today you were to approve the recommendation by the CAO only to exempt those within resurfacing or doing potholes.
Right.
Then, okay, my 30 sub-operators running sweepers, the first thing they're going to say is, oh, I don't want to run a sweeper anymore. I want to go back to doing potholes because that's my job classification. So now I have to meet and confer with the union, and I have to decide what's going to be my parameter to decide who's going to be on furloughs and who's not going to be off furloughs. We need to determine all those things.
So now we're going to create more headaches for you. Like
Exactly.
Wisconsin's done.
Yeah, and it's not about the headaches. It's not about the headaches, Councilman. It's about the efficiency of the services.
So how would it work for you? You're now the acting general manager.
Yes.
You're the Bill Robertson. He's out selling cars and you've taken over.
That is correct.
Right. I always thought about Bill Robertson. Hey, you own the Honda place. What the hell are you working for the city for? So what would work for you as the interim general manager? What would work for you?
To me, what it would work better, and not for me, but for the residents of the city of Los Angeles, if we exempt the entire Bureau of Street Services.
And that way, Ms. Gibson, don't shake your head, no. And that way, what services, if we do the umbrella, what services would you be providing?
All the services that we are providing right now and are being delayed as a result of the furloughs, we will be able to provide better and more services for what, for that the amount of services that we are providing.
Within budget.
Within budget.
Without causing any deficit.
That is correct.
And by creating these other employees in other departments jealousy because now you're off of furloughs and they're still on. But the fact is, when I look at the taxpayer, they say, trim my trees, fix my sidewalks, and pave my street. I don't care about cultural affairs. I don't care about department of this or department of that. Do something that's tangible, something that we can look at, so we can see we're getting some benefit from our tax funds. That's what people tell me.
Well, and I know
that's what you're saying you're going to do.
in my district that this is the one thing that people really think we're screwing up, is potholes and street resurfacing.
Not doing it.
And, yeah, not doing enough. I mean, this is the thing that I get a lot of criticism for in my district. And if we can do this without creating a hole in the general fund, I don't know why we wouldn't restore this entire department. Because this is what people see on the ground. They want two things. They want safety. They want the kind of public safety they're getting from the LAPD and the kind of drop in crime we've had, and they want their streets taken care of, and they want their streets swept, and this is what they're complaining about.
If I could add to that, there is a larger issue for us too, and our office is dealing with the $53 million deficit that exists. That could.
Why didn't you lease those parking lots out? You could have solved that problem.
We're going to resurrect that.
Yeah, I thought that was such a great idea.
So we have a $53 million deficit that we're contending with.
Between now and the end of the
That's
fiscal
right.
year.
That's right. This year, there's still to make up that hole. There's still the potential that we might have to furlough an additional 5 days.
Right.
So from our office perspective, this is kind of a balancing act where we're saying we're willing to pay for the resurfacing, Councilman Koretz, important in your district, pothole repair, those types of things. But we have a mid-year coming up, and we would like to have developed recommendations to address the larger issue of the $53 million deficit, and that could include using gas tax and some of these other savings to help plug that hole. So I think that's where we're trying to play a little, to look at both sides and address.
That's not fair to take gas tax to pay off our other debts. That's something that really offends people, especially when we're paying almost $4 a gallon for gas, and we divert it to something else. That's what gets a lot of people upset. It's earmarked for this, but we're going to divert it to that. And that's what the state's done a number of times. They take money out of the transportation, they do it with this, and then everything goes up in arms. I think that proposal is good. Now, there's another, nothing's simple. And what also comes into play is GSD, Department of Transportation, Bureau of Engineering, and the costs involved, because it's not just you, it's these other departments that support what you're doing. So how does that work when they're not on furlough and these other departments are on furlough? How do we coordinate so they're not sitting at the yard waiting to get a green light to get the job done? We
are recommending in this report to furlough those key departments, those key operations that support resurfacing. If we were to exempt resurfacing, to take them off furlough.
We know what he meant, not what he said.
Sorry, thanks for the catch.
All right, okay.
If resurfacing was taken off furloughs, we would require the same of those support departments because we need.
Who's going to pay for that, though, the other departments?
This would still be gas tax, and that's factored in, Councilman. We have factored that into the cost of.
So any related would be compensated by the gas tax and the other funds that we have, the AA?
No. In this case, it's all gas tax. We're talking about all gas tax.
Oh, you're only talking about street servicing, street servicing and asphalt repair.
That's correct.
What about what you're looking at? You're looking at a wider perimeter. You're looking at more activities from the Bureau, not just the basic.
Primarily, the core support that we get from GSD, DOT, and BOE is for our resurfacing program and our maintenance program, which is.
They're recommending you only get money for that, but you have other responsibilities that they want to continue on furloughs, and then you're talking about these people jumping from this job to that job, and then you got to sit here and negotiate and try and solve that problem. Because I'm a street sweeping operator, and now I'm going to be furloughed, continue furlough, but I'm going to be the pothole repair. I'm not, so I want to go to pothole repair. I can see the headache it's going to cause if we don't open up the gate. How do we open up the gate without creating havoc in the deficit that we have? And there's no doubt we got a huge deficit. But we got money that's sitting there that we can use and not over budget. There's $60 million that they have in the reserve. And I don't know if it's fair to take the gas tax money that's supposed to be used to fix the streets, which are in deplorable condition, to bail out a fund that obviously we have to bail out, but why use that money?
Councilman, the $8 million in gas tax money, just to be clear, is legal to take. We do have the right to do that. You're right that it has always been a balancing act between how much do we fund, how much do we actually take that we have the right to, versus how much do we actually program into an operating budget a capital project. But just to at least set your mind at ease, based on the amount of salaries that we're spending out of the gas tax fund, the city has a right to claim about $40 million in overhead and related cost reimbursements. We were only budgeting $15.6 million in this year's budget, and we moved an additional 2.7 a couple months ago to help make up that difference. But if we were to move anything from $8 million or any portion of that $8 million, we do have the legal right to do that and move that to make up the general fund deficit.
I understand that, but it's not morally right.
So
It
how
may
much
be
of-
legally right, but it's not
how-
morally right.
Okay, and how much you move is the policy decision that faces you in this
Yeah,
report.
because
So-
when I'm putting gas in my car and I'm looking at that gas tax, I'm under the impression that's supposed to take care of the streets, and that's what the people think.
Right.
And that's what it's there for.
Right.
Yet, we then have the opportunity to put it someplace else, which has nothing to do with fixing the streets, which obviously we know are
yes,
deteriorating at a
and-
quicker rate.
Understood.
No, I
Another way-
understand your point. I understand the legal aspect, but there's a moral aspect about, we talk about transparency to the, you know.
Well, Mr.
Democratic-
Chair, I think we're both in agreement on this.
Again?
Yeah, we are.
Oh, wow.
Shalom.
Who would believe it? So where do you think we go on that basis?
Yeah, I think.
I'd
that-
be inclined to restore their entire budget
See, here's the only-
based on the fact that they have the ability to fund it and
Here's the only thing.
we have a need.
Bill Robertson leaves, Osorio comes in as the interim, and all of a sudden, everybody goes back full-time. Now they're gonna make you the hero and call Bill the villain. See, all of a
Well,
sudden,
Bill's
you're-
gone, so,
He's the villain.
Bill's the greatest.
plus nobody thinks he's the villain.
No, I'm just saying that they're gonna say, wait a sec, we get a new interim, and all of a sudden, we get off of furloughs. No, I understand everybody's position. My focus on it is, we got a huge deficit. I gotta be realistic with that. But also, we're talking about a core function. We're talking about something that people can see every single day. It's not some of the fluff, because God knows we do a lot of fluff in the city. This is something they can really see that will say, you know what? This is great. We're gonna have an election March 8th. Neither of us are on the ballot, which is great. We don't have to worry about it. But you know what's happening is all of a sudden, they're gonna say, look at, people are now in office and we're getting things taken care of that we need to get taken care of, core functions. And I've been an advocate of core functions for 9 years, saying, let's our core functions, fund our core functions, and let's do away with the fluff. So I recommend, according to what the recommendation is, there's a couple recommendations in here, and I think,
Mr. Chair, can I, apparently because I submitted this report rather late, I was asked to read our recommendations
Yes.
into the
right,
record.
I understand that's part of the requirement now since it turned in late. So go ahead and then we'll make our decision.
We have three recommendations. Approve exempting from furloughs through June 30th, 2011, certain classifications in the street resurfacing and reconstruction and maintaining streets program and in supporting departments in GSD, BOE, and DOT. Direct BSS to report back in June 2011 with an update on the additional work accomplished as a result of exempting certain classifications, and similar to detention officers, direct the CAO to require employees taken off furloughs to withdraw any furlough-related grievance.
Will the union support that?
We think it's a step in the right direction, but we think we support the Nazario Salceda as the interim general manager, what he's trying to do in the Bureau. We very much appreciate what the CAO presented before you today. I think it's a step in the right direction. But if the Bureau of Street Services has unused gas tax money that they've used to unfurlough folks in general services, we're asking for street services to use their very own money to unfurlough their whole department to continue providing the vital.
My question was regarding the grievances. We want to make that a condition, that if we approve this, because that takes a lot of time and effort and energy, and it's part of the request that the union withdraw any furlough-related grievances within that particular department, not obviously any other department.
And that's with the recommendation of the CO of only exempting resurfacing, or is that exempting the whole?
Well, we're going to get into that part. We're going to get into exemption. My focus on it is, and we're going to condition this until the end of June, which is end of this fiscal year. And obviously, we'll have to hassle with next fiscal year. But I would recommend, and I think my colleagues are going to support, that the services that you provide, extenuating existing past, and I don't know all the services that you folks provide, but not just the certain classifications, that we broaden it out and I'm not talking about your administrative stuff that you may think is not important on this, but the ones that you believe as interim general manager, to use those funds to deliver that service. And there's a whole bunch of them that you do, and I don't know every single one, but I'd like to broaden it out past against the recommendation that is coming forward, to take that classification and broaden it out to what is reasonable in the aspects. When we talk about pothole, street servicing, slurry, street sweep, all those different categories. I mean, the hands-on in the field, get the job done. That's what I would recommend. So we broaden that category. And I don't know how many classifications you folks have, but you probably have a whole bunch.
A lot. And if I may, I think that's a great idea, and we would love to work with John in identifying those classifications and identifying what are the benefits of exempting those classifications. I mean, and if we have to provide a report to you.
I think if we're exempting the clerks, you know, that's something I think we're going over above if we're starting doing that. We want to do something that's really going to benefit while we're using those dollars. Now, if we can tie that into the dollars, then we can. But I don't know how we can tie in all the other services that are administrative, I should say, versus field-oriented, field-operated.
Well, I would happily second your motion.
Okay, and then you folks can get together and work that out. That's good. Because you know best. I think that'll be the direction, if you understand where we're going with it. And then you can get together with the union on those conditions. And then, because I come from a union background, I've handled grievances, arbitrations, I know the hassle, and since they're being taken off of furloughs, if we can withdraw those, that obviously saves a lot of administrative hassle also.
Yes, I want to clarify for the record. So basically, you're not approving the recommendations contained in the
We're
CEO
broadening
report.
the
You're asking the Bureau of Sanitation,
No,
sorry,
no,
Bureau of
no,
Street Services to work it out with the CAO. Also, from what I see.
No. We're broadening the recommendations to include, they want to extend it past the classification of street, resurfacing and reconstruction, and maintaining streets program. We want to broaden that out. Okay, so we want to broaden that part out. So not just restricted to the specific classification of street servicing and reconstruction and maintaining street program. Other programs that the interim general manager believes fall within these guidelines.
Yes, so as we understand it, it'd be the field operations, but not the administrative staff.
See,
And
I
that- so
think the administrative, I don't think the administrative staff, if they want to continue on furlough, because administrative staff's not going to jump in the tractor or jump in the street paver.
Right.
That I think we can continue on furloughs, but the people who are actually in the trenches, as we say.
Okay, so if that, with that understanding, we can definitely work with the Bureau and come back with something for
That'll work for you?
It'll work for us. It'll work for us.
For the union, from the union side?
The only thing that I want to I want to thank everyone for what you're doing today.
There's only two of us you can thank, not everyone.
Oh, I do, but listen, it wasn't an easy road. It wasn't an easy road for us to get here today. I do want to stress, though, that
A lot of potholes on the way.
A lot of fun.
No, but their time is of the essence. June 30th is coming up.
I agree. Okay, we want to get this done ASAP. So, you know, today is
We
Wednesday.
have the money.
Can we get it done by Friday or Monday? I mean, you got tomorrow and Friday. Oh, it is?
Yes.
Oh,
There is
well.
an impact to the general fund.
When's it going there?
As soon as you make a
Okay,
decision.
well, we'll
in
make the
C-
recommendation, and we'll say forthwith, but when's the Budget Committee hearing? So it'll be this coming Monday, they have a meeting?
I think there's a break on the 14th, because I think you're all going to League of Cities, so.
What about this coming Monday?
I don't.
It's
we
time to
can-
post it.
We can talk to the chair about whether we can get it on this Monday, or if not, it might have to wait till the 21st.
See, because the chair, of budget, this Monday is the 7th.
Right.
This budget,
And
the
I-
chair has an election on the next day.
And I also think that they would have required the report to be filed already for that committee.
Well, let me say this, let's expedite it as quickly as possible.
Can
Can we put in a request that we ask the chair to consider waiving?
Yeah, there you go.
You could do that.
I don't think he'll do it, but we can
will
certainly ask.
But you know what, let him know that we've got conditions. We're not opening it all the way, we're putting restrictions, but we are giving more flexibility to the interim general manager. If he waives it, then that'll be great, and then we can just move it through the council, and I think we can stand up in council and get it approved, and then you can start moving forward. Because now we're in March, and if we drag it on to the middle of March, and then we got April, so by the time they kick it in, it's April, May, and then 3 months, I mean, we can get a whole lot more done.
Yeah, we got you. We can make this work as quickly as you'd like it to work.
We like it work as quickly as possible, and if we can get it waived from Mr. Parks, that would be great.
Okay.
So, now you know what we're talking about?
Got it.
If not, Maria, we'll work with you to make sure it's right.
Now, I think we all understand. We're all on the same page? Everybody on the same page?
Absolutely.
Got it? Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations on your internship.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, let's go to number 2,
Discuss on top.
and then we'll be done after number 2.
The city attorney has submitted a requested ordinance relative to providing full-time city employees who are activated by the armed services of the United States, obviously, in response to Operation New Dawn, with the difference between their current city salaries and continuation of benefits for the duration of their military assignment.
Moved by Mr. Zine, second by Mr. Koretz. Anything for the military?
We certainly have to do this.
God bless you.
It's always been a city policy, and we certainly should.
Pending right now, waiting for this.
Okay. That's it. Unanimous approval? Anything else, Madam?
No public comments?
No. And whoever's in here, you are the public. We thank you for being here.
You're
All right, that
officially adjourned.
concludes our meeting at what?